So people, wherever we are, hot weather or cold, we think we're here just for this little hour to think about a few things, but to hear these words as advice. It's like it's cooking class. And if you have a whole hour of cooking class and you come away with no recipe, you'll be very annoyed. So everything is said is actually a recipe. You don't have to make the cake. You can think about it, but it's got to be heard like that, okay? Think of it like this. It's very important. It's a way of hearing it. So we think for this 1 hour, we'll do this to take these tools so we can take one step forward in the development of our own amazing potential. Maybe we'll talk about that today. So on the one hand, for our own sake, and then also for the sake of others, because we all live in this crazy world together. So I think we all can see how our minds are crazy, right? Everybody's got minds that are uncontrolled. And in our world, and in neuroscientific world, in our physical world, in our psychological world, it's kind of considered normal. We're all like this. It's true. And it's true. We are normal. But Buddha's point, as we know, speaking psychologically, is that he has found from his own experience that we can control the mind. That's really what concentration meditation is, We've got the ability to actually, it's like the house, it seems to me our head is like completely unedited chaos, isn't it? There seems no logic to what arises in the mind. We don't seem to choose what arises in the mind. It seems to come from all over the place. So it's very scary because we don't feel we're in control, because we don't know where the thoughts come from. We have no idea. So it's completely berserk, coming out of the blue, unedited. So, I mean, no wonder we go crazy. It's not surprising, it really isn't surprising. So what to do about it? Well, and Buddha's telling us, what I think is so empowering, here we are with this unedited, crazy head. But it's so encouraging, and this is where Lama Yeshe was so amazing, so incredible, so kind, so practical. From the very beginning of meeting Western students, like mid-60s, I think he met his first Western student then. All these hippies who came to Kathmandu for looking for drugs and enlightenment together. For whatever reason, we conflated those two. So he from the very beginning, because he's got wisdom, and this is the point, the Buddhist view is that when you've sorted out your own mind, even to some degree, the way they describe, and this has been now 2,500 years, coming from the Indians before that, because they're the ones who invented this technique that the world vaguely knows as mindfulness, but which is actually this technique called concentration, which is this brilliant skill. We're only really discovering these incredible Indians now in our culture. That this skill enables you, even a little bit of it, enables you to learn to feel like, learn to edit. Put it this way, I think it's a very useful one, to learn to edit what the hell is going on in your head. And then as you start to study Buddhist psychology based on that technique, it's a literal technique, it's a technical technique, the ability to concentrate, and don't hold your breath. It's enormously difficult to get it. Don't hold your breath at all, but even some semblance of it, some beginnings of attempting to edit the thoughts. It's a perfectly good way to put it. Start to make sense of what's going on in your head. Already brings peace of mind, already brings sanity, But what I'm getting at is when we can understand by listening to Buddhist teachings, reading Buddhist teachings, hearing the Buddhist view. This person lived in India a couple of thousand years ago. He has found from his own direct experience, means from having done the job, he's made the cake, he's got the recipe, that we can, eventually the long-term one is we can rid the mind altogether of all the crazy thoughts, which is pretty insane for us. But even before that, we can learn to start to control it. And then a lot of the talk, and this is where Lama Yeshe comes in, and like I always quote this, but in Lama Yeshe's book called Mahamudra, it came out last year, I think, which is meditating, learning to understand emptiness. He talks a lot about the nature of our mind. And I think this is so important. It's incredibly encouraging. If you can't play even one, you can't even hold a tennis ball and hold a tennis racket, but you see Federer play, straight away you get courage. Straight away you go, wow, if he can do it, I can too. There must be some techniques, But if you never meet a person who's got a better mind, you never meet a person who's controlled their mind, you never meet a person, then of course you're not going to think it's possible. We just buy into whatever's in our own head right now, isn't it? And that's why, the Roger Federer of Buddhism will be Dalai Lama, let's say. This wonderful, happy fellow, on the face of it, a happy fellow, and millions of people adore him. They don't quite know why, but he just sort of gives you courage. He doesn't go on about it much. But to have even one person in front of you can see who, in the face of incredible suffering, if you want to compare our suffering with his, he's the daddy of 6 million Tibetans, I don't know how, and they're all scattered all over the world now. Even just recently in a teaching we heard, some of us, His Holiness was so sweet. He said, the Tibetans rely upon me. They rely upon me. I mean, they adore him. And he said, and he was in a light plane in India, and it was kind of getting a bit turbulent. And he thought to himself, I wonder what will happen to my 6 million Tibetans if I die, he said. It was so sweet. It was so sweet, That's why he's promised the Tibetans he'll live till he's 110, at least. Many times lately, he's promised he'll live to 110, because he knows that people rely upon him, because it's a very dire time. So to have one person in front of you, or have Buddhist teachings even that tell you about your mind and what it really is, then you've got courage. No matter how crummy it is now, no matter how bad your tennis is now, it's possible. This, I think, is incredibly important. When we learn mindfulness in the West, it's okay, it's great. Lots of people are doing it now. But I'm not sure how much the psychologists will tell you what your possibility is. The very most they'll say is maybe you can learn to be a bit more comfortable or a bit more, I don't know what people say, the goal. They would never state the Buddhist goal because it sounds so insane. It sounds so insane to say that you've got the capacity, that your mind in its nature is pure and clear, that delusions in the mind, all the neurotic crazy bits in the head, are not at the core of our being and can be utterly removed. This is too radical. This is too bizarre. It's too religious sounding, so they don't talk like that. Because they know perfectly well who would talk about the brain. You don't read the neuroscientists telling your brain is pure and clear. And then you can get rid of all the ugly bits. I mean, we tried that in the 1930s. It's called lobotomies. It didn't work. So to hear, especially in very down-to-earth language like Lama Yeshe does, not in all this 18th century, 2,500-year-ago language, or even 1,000-year-old Tibetan language, but here in our own language, it's encouraging. It's encouraging, we'll be able to see past our own nose and go, even though my head's full of unedited berserk nonsense, it's not who I really am, and I can fix it. This is the main thing, I swear to you. This is so incredibly important. I swear that is what has sustained me all the years in my practice. No matter how bad things get, no matter how much rubbish is coming up in your head, no matter how much junk is facing you outside, jumping on top of you, which is life. And you can, when you, sometimes you collapse under it. Sometimes you just pick yourself up. But this is not. First of all, it's not permanent. It's changing. It's impermanent. One of Buddha's marvelous kind of viewpoints, which is coming from his own experience, of the reality is, and we all know this, but we don't believe it, that things change. So then you persevere. You persevere. Then you persevere. But it's not easy when you're in the midst. That's the trouble. And this is putting a technical take on it, the logical reason why, according to Buddhist psychology, the logical reason why we believe in what's happening now as the whole story, we can't see past our own nose, is because of this deepest delusion, this deepest misconception in the mind that causes us to cling mightily to this concrete, solid, absolute, set in stone, me, it, them, her, whatever. So this is what paralyzes us. This is what terrifies us, So it takes, this is hard work. This is really hard work. But the key job, when we can start to do the job of knowing, we know we're miserable. We know we're miserable. But we're looking out there for the cause. That's where we get distracted. That's where we get completely thrown off. And that's where we just get worse. That just entrenches the problem. The key thing that has to shift is to know you've got, your mind is crazy. And then no, you don't have to look outside. You have to look inside. Look outside, be sensible, keep out of the way of the abusive boyfriend, chuck him out, please. But you've got to look inside. And that's the part that's the difficult. It's like reversing the energy of a bomb, because everything goes out, explodes out. We've got to go in. That's the tough job. That's the hard job. That's the hard job, because it's not our habit, that's all. But when have a confidence when you read these teachings, and somebody who looks like they've done the job, like Lama Yeshe, tells you your mind is pure, tells you that your virtues and your goodness are what define you, and that your anger and your depression don't, you're prepared to listen to it. Wow, he's found that. That's interesting. I'd like to know what his methods are. It's very encouraging. It's incredibly encouraging. That's the thing, So let's just be logical now then. Let's do a bit of debating using logic to prove that the positive states of mind have a valid basis. as the Lamas would say, have a valid basis. It sounds very peculiar to us. And that the neurotic states of mind, the crazy roommates, have no valid basis. This is something that's so, it's practical. We're very intelligent. We can understand it, but it's not how we normally think. So the first way to understand that is to understand how all these emotions we have, which is what we have when the body's involved. The body tells you you've got emotions, the body feeling it, your body shaking, your words are spitting out the mouth, your eyes are wide, your heart is beating, the blood is booming, the air, you can't control it. Then you're having an emotion. Well, this is part of the problem. We only notice what's going on in our mind when the body starts to feel something. But this is the tip of the tip of the tip of the iceberg, So this is why the skill in Buddhism, using this brilliant technique these Indians more than 3,000 years ago invented, that the Buddha took with him when he diverged in his own direction 500 years later, which is still absolutely a central technique in Buddhist practice, known vaguely as mindfulness, but literally, correctly as calm abiding. It's the name of the end result of this concentration technique. It's a technique to get single-pointed concentration. Of course, as we know from reading the literature, to a degree of subtlety that modern psychology and neuroscience don't even posit as existing. So even a semblance of that technique, even a little bit practicing every day, even a tiny bit, you start with 3 minutes focusing on something, anchoring your mind to something, just to help you anchor your mind, because you're all over the place in the boat. You've got to anchor yourself. So a simple one, as we all know, one of the things that Lord Buddha taught, the objects of concentration, is the breath. It comes in and out naturally. You don't have to force it. So you just focus on that. So what's the benefit of this? The long-term result, of course, is when you get more subtle and you've got the single point of concentration, you're incredible. Lama Yeshe talks about that in Mahamudra. Some of the qualities you'd have. I'm going to read you from Lama. Why not have Lama's words? Get you excited, okay? Don't have my stupid words. Let me find it. Hang on. Can't see anything with these glasses, my old glasses. My latest glasses broke. Where are we? Here we go. Mahamudra. It's a gorgeous book. Mahamudra. Okay. All right. Where is it? No good. Oh dear. Corrections. Marketing. Mahamudra. It's not it. Sorry, can't find it. Interior. Here we go. Okay. The chapter, some of you have read this before. If you've got the book, you read it, and some of you have heard me say it before. But the chapter is The Benefits of Samadhi. Samadhi is meaning concentration. And it's what you get when you get shamatha. The benefits of samadhi are incredible. They don't often talk about like in the text, but Lama wanted to get us excited. He's like this with us. He wanted to show us what's possible. When you hear it, you get excited, you get enthusiastic, So this calm abiding, this name shamatha for this technique when you've accomplished it, it's what's necessary in order to really cut the root of all the delusions. To really get to the subtlest level of your mind is necessary in order to cut the deepest delusions. This ego, known as ego grasping, the root delusion that really believes in the depth of our being that we're concrete, solid, separate, individual. It's so subtle we don't even. It's so deep, so primordial. We can't identify it. It's very subtle. So we need this concentration to get to the mind to subtler levels, like the microscope of our mind, in order to see it and unpack it. But the point I was sort of going to say before, but I'm going to say again now, all these emotions are just the tip of the iceberg. They're the symptoms. They're merely, the shouting out the mouth is a symptom of what's going on in your mind. It's called anger. And anger is a bunch of angry thoughts. It's a philosophy. How dare you do that to me? I do not deserve it. They are misconceptions. And the point I'm getting at, partly, and I was going to say both, is that these have no basis, no sound basis. I was going to go there, but then I wandered off to this. So I'll hopefully come back to that before we finish. No, I want to say it now. Okay, they have no basis. This is the key thing in Buddhist psychology, which really takes us a while to understand because it's not how we think. We give credibility to every thought we have merely because we have it. The Buddha says, no, that's mistaken. Some thoughts are valid. Some thoughts are valid, meaning not morally right, not sort of a moralistic statement. A thought that's valid is a thought that's in sync with something that it points to. So, you know, if I say that's blue, we know in English the word blue refers to that color. We all agree upon that as conventional truth. We know, you know, we'll say that is a pearl. Apparently they're pearls. So we know that word is referring to this phenomenon. We agree upon it. We tick the box and we agree. We shake hands. That's conventional truth. Just conventional. Conventional. That is so a valid cognition, a valid thought is a pearl. So when you hear that, your eyes go to something because you know what a pearl looks like, and you're looking for that because you know that refers to something there, and you're looking for the pearl. And as soon as you see it in your pearl and you've verified it's a pearl, Robina, you tick the box. Robina just had a valid cognition. It's a very simple idea, not complicated. Math, 1 + 1 is 2. That's a valid cognition. We agree upon it. And this is conventional reality. We agree. Now, if I say 1 + 1 is 3, poor Robina, she's in trouble. If you hear me say I'm holding an elephant in my right hand, she's in serious trouble, because you know that's not a valid cognition. She's living in la la land. So all these conspiracy theorists right now, it's interesting. I was reading an analysis in the New York Times of some of these conspiracy theories. I mean, it's not a surprise. Buddha's saying we're all conspiracy theorists. We're all believing in things that don't exist. We all see something and then we make up a story and we make it fit what we think is true, and then we believe it. This is, I mean, I'm not kidding you. This is literally what Buddha's saying to us. We're living in la la land, literally. It's a question of degree. This is literally what Buddha's saying. It's a big surprise to us to think that. Sure, 1 + 1 is 3 could get you into some trouble, believing that, you know, the world is run by a bunch of pedophiles and Mr. Trump's called in the military, and they're waiting on that second as they got closer and closer to the January the 6th, even some of these, you know, these sites they were talking, even 5 minutes, still not too late for Mr. Trump to call to invoke the insurrection something or other. These beliefs they have 100% in their mind, and then when it doesn't happen, you get devastated. Well, Buddha says that's samsara, because attachment and anger and ego grasping and pride and jealousy and low self-esteem and depression are emotions. They play out in the body, but they're rooted in being these misconceptions, these conspiracy theories in the mind. It's a really good concept, conspiracy theory. It's just a question of degree. It's just these days it's rampant with conspiracy theories. Anybody will believe anything. We put it together, we think about it, we like it, and then we believe in it. We just tie the string and say, there it is, look. And then nothing will prove us otherwise. This is called ignorance, and this is exactly what Buddha says how we all are. Exactly. It's just a question of degree, that's all. It's a question of what you believe in, how serious the invalid cognitions are. So there's 2 things I'm saying here. I want to read Lama, this is the method to cut the root so no longer conspiracy theories can come. This is the point. To cut the root lie, to cut the root misconception, to cut the root invalid cognition. This is a very simple concept. When we get this, we are on track with understanding Buddhism. Honestly, I promise you. Because Buddha divides all the contents of our mind into these 2 categories, or the neurotic, deluded, disturbing, emotional misconceptions, the conspiracy theories. Thoughts that have no basis in reality, thoughts that are invalid. Not in a moralistic sense. Don't hear it this way. Oh, anger's wrong. Don't be feeling I'm a naughty girl. No, anger's wrong because it's a misconception. Okay, I've got to go there now. I have to leave Lama. I've got to go back to this one. This is more important. I'll have to tease you with Lama for next time. I'll leave him open just in case. I wanted to get you excited. Now I'm going to beat you up again with heavy-duty words about your crazy mind, okay? So we'll finish with Lama to get us excited. We've still got time. 40 minutes. Okay, so let's look at how ego grasping, the root delusion, then attachment, the main voice of the root delusion, then anger, which is what attachment, you know, when attachment doesn't get what it wants and you have a panic attack, and all the others. Look how come they are not valid cognitions. This is the essence of Buddhist psychology. Therefore, the entire Buddhist path. All right. Okay. So we have to take the view of karma. The big picture view in Buddhism, the big picture view is there are trillions of minds, beginningless and endless, non-physical, not the handiwork of God, Buddha, a creator, mummy, daddy, not physical, connected to the physical, no problem. And they are in this beginningless and endless continuity of mental moments, and it's full of thoughts every millisecond, every millisecond, every millisecond. And some of them are valid and some are ridiculous. Forget the mechanics. Forget all the ones that help us function better, like concentration. Forget those. So, okay. There's just these two categories: the neurotic, deluded, invalid cognitions, and the reasonable, relatively speaking, reasonable, valid cognitions. The first lot cause you suffering. Why? Because they're not in touch with reality. That's as simple as that. They cause you suffering because they're not valid cognitions. This is so surprising to us. It's a shock to us. And the good ones cause us happiness because they're valid. They're in sync with reality. Relatively speaking, they're in sync with interdependence. So, okay, why is attachment an invalid cognition? And why is anger an invalid cognition? And why is pride an invalid cognition? And why is depression an invalid cognition? Why is it they have no basis in reality? What does it mean? Well, I'll tell you, let's look at depression. Depression is internalized aversion. Aversion is the basic kind of state of mind that is expressed either in a volatile external way as anger or as an internalized hopeless depression. They're both the same thought. They're aversion. And the response when attachment doesn't go what it wants. Attachment is that one's a show. It's always this little eager beaver, little hungry me running around finding something that'll make me happy. And then when you find, and then when you get what attachment doesn't want, the panic attack of aversion arises. And if it's a volatile person, they'll punch out. How dare you do that to me? I don't deserve it. How dare that happen to me? I don't deserve it. Or depression, which is that, but it's internal. I'm hopeless. I'm nothing. I'm nobody. I'm useless. And then indeed everything else is useless. But let's look at anger. It's an easier one. It's an easier one to hear. The thought of anger pretty much is this shock, isn't it? It's a shock when the person does that or says that. And it's either to you, but also to other people. We forget the other people one. Okay, just look at yourself. It's very clear. It's how dare you do, and the worse it is, the more shocked we are. Absolute shock. And the feeling of anger is, I don't deserve it. The deepest feeling of anger is, I don't deserve it. Even if you just punch the person in the nose and they punch you right back, still the feeling of anger is this outrage. How dare they do it? I don't deserve it. This innocent victim. So this is interesting. Lama Yeshe would talk like this when he talks about ego grasping, the root delusion, which is so subtle we can't see it. But its energy, its deepest assumption is this innocent victim me who is set in stone and is put on this planet by somebody else. This is my words, kind of like a complete innocent victim, set in stone, and the world is full of all these delicious things over there that if I get them, they'll make me happy, and all the ugly things over there, and if they come anywhere near me, they'll make me miserable. So you're living in fear the whole time. But this innocent victim, that as if the rest of the world has got nothing to do with us. We're this innocent victim in the midst of this chaos. Now, when good things happen, we don't care if we deserve it. Just give me more, please. Well, we don't think we deserve it, but we hungrily take it in case it gets snatched away from us. That's called, this greed of attachment. Give me more, please. Then the bad things happen. That's when the panic attacks comes. And it's so clear to us, we believe 100% I don't deserve it. So we've got to ask the question, where is that thought coming from? Your mother didn't teach you that. Since I was a tiny little girl, my sister Janet was mean to me. I'm cross-eyed, right? My eyes, when my glasses aren't there, my eye goes right into my nose. So I'm cross-eyed. So as soon as Janet said to me, oh, cockeye, I'd be dead. I'd be on the floor, be weeping, crying, pulling my hair out. No one else could harm me. But the minute my sister said that, that'll be the end of me. How mean Janet is. How dare she do that to me? So the thought of anger, where's it come from? My mother didn't teach me. I knew how to do it very well. I had it implanted in my mind. Well, it's rooted in another thought, which is underneath it. And that thought is the thought of attachment, which is the thought of enormous emotional hunger that assumes I only ever deserve the good things. So it's unspoken word. It's just a hungry, greedy assumption. And I know these heavy words that is just desperately looking for the good things. And then when we get the good things, we sort of don't care whether we deserve or don't, but the real feeling is we do deserve. And give me more, please. We do deserve it. We only deserve good. Everybody on the planet thinks, like we talk about human rights, we all deserve to be treated properly. No, we don't. What the better way to say it is we all want to be treated properly. That's valid. That's an appropriate thought. The Buddhist view of karma, and this is why it's so heavy for us in the West. So we think we're born as an innocent victim who didn't ask to get born, and we deserve only the good things. So simply speaking, before we go to a karma, the assumption of attachment, which is underpinning anger, it's beneath anger, is that I deserve only the good. I deserve only the good things. So the millisecond, the thing that attachment doesn't want, which is the bad thing, my sister calling me cockeye, the second that arises, this unbelievable pain, the offense, the outrage, how dare she do that to me? I don't deserve it. That's coming from the assumption of attachment that I do deserve. We don't even articulate it, I deserve. It's just an assumption. So that's what attachment is. It's this massive, greedy little vampire in us that is hungry for all the nice things and the delicious things and the good things and the right sound and the right smell and the right taste and the right person and the right weather and the right everything. Everything has to be perfect. That's attachment, and that runs the show. So no wonder we go crazy, because we can guarantee attachment won't get what it wants every day. Look at the world, look at your life. So we're running between attachment and aversion, the panic attack of aversion, I don't deserve it, 1,000 times a day. No wonder we're exhausted by the end of the day. And this is all playing out at the level of assumption. We don't even unpack these assumptions. So anger is a false view. Why is it false? Because it's coming from attachment, which is also a lie. Why is that a lie? Why is there an assumption I deserve only the good things? Because it's based on the root lie. It's based on the root lie that assumes a self-existent, concrete, set in stone me in the first place. We've got to unpack these misconceptions like this. We have to question. Don't just try to suppress your anger. Oh, anger's wrong. Yeah, please try and suppress it. Don't murder somebody. That's helpful. It's part of the practice. Control it. Otherwise, you'll be in trouble. But when we begin to be our own therapists in the middle scope of practice, having subdued to some degree to our body and speech, now we have the luxury to start to become our own therapist. And not just notice your feelings occasionally. It's way more subtle than that. And in fact, you have to study Buddhist model of the mind, because there's a very distinct, precise presentation of what goes on in the mind. So we start to question the assumptions. Question the assumption. What do you mean? What do you mean I should question I don't deserve it? Of course I don't deserve it. I didn't do anything to my sister. I was just sitting there and she called me cockeye. So we can be forgiven for thinking we're an innocent victim. So forget even karma. This is already powerful enough, to question the assumptions, but it takes a while to see them. So they're invalid cognitions. So then the really biggest one, though, of course, is seen in the framework of the bigger picture of Buddha's view of karma, which is that, as I said before, all these trillions of sentient beings pervading the universe, beginningless and endless, and the law that runs these minds every millisecond, the law within which these minds run, the law of karma, a natural law. He didn't make it up. It's been around well before him. These amazing genius Indians before him were the ones who observed it. The workings of the universe, driven by the mind, driven by what goes on in the mind. So these Indians are the ones who even map the mind internally. I mean, it's incredible. We don't have anything like that in our culture. We map the brain. We're clever like that. So this, so then Buddha talks about all these thousands of misconceptions, especially the ones that are have the emotional component. They're the most intense ones. They're the ones that drive us and make a mess of our lives and therefore harm others. So the root delusion, the root misconception, the root wrong cognition is the assumption of a concrete, solid, set in stone, uncaused meanness. This is the hardest one to recognize. This is the hardest one to unpack. This is the hardest one to argue with. So at least we can begin to look at attachment and anger, and they're hard enough. They're the ones that they're the symptoms of ego grasping, the root delusion, and they play out in the daytime, So attachment is the main one. It's this constant hunger, emotional hunger, coming from the feeling I'm not enough, which comes from the feeling of a concrete self. That's the root of it. So we have to unpack them gradually. So maybe first, with anger, you've got to unpack anger first. Maybe you've got to control your anger first. You've got to control your jealousy and your anger and your arrogance first. They're more gross levels that are coming out of attachment, Then you can start to see underneath. I mean, I can see that in my own life with anger. My volatile response always immediate when I didn't get what I wanted. My attachment was thwarted. Anger would come, I'd pride myself on my cleverness in saying exactly what I wanted when I wanted. So that's okay. There's a good side to it. But, the negative one was harming other people, shooting my mouth off, being mean to people. Okay, I didn't rape and kill, but, I was a bit rough with my mouth. So first of all, junior school, you control the speech first. You control the servant of the anger, which is your speech. This is already a massive practice. We spend the whole hour talking about this. We know this one. To control our speech demands you have some awareness. It demands you have awareness of your mind, because before you know it, the words are out the mouth. If you've got anger, you don't even notice. It's just out the mouth. Oh, wow, what happened? I must be angry. Quite surprising, So first you can harness the speech, which is already a stupendously powerful practice. You harness the speech. Then you have the luxury to look at what drives the speech, in this case, anger. How dare she do that to me? I don't deserve it. How dare they do this? And we live, and look at the world. I mean, there's so much anger in our world now. It's just absolutely astonishing. And there's so much anger that's expressed, vomiting out the mouth. Everybody, we all feel we have the right to say what we want when we want. There's just so much constant rage, unbelievable rage. It's very fascinating. Unbelievable anger. It's called anger. We give it all these fancy names in modern psychology, We kind of look at what the person's mother did to them. This is ridiculous. Please stay focused. Look at their mind. It's vomiting out their mouth. There it is, staring at you in the face. Anger. It's called anger. Why do you kill, torture, rape? Anger. It's hardly complicated. Because your attachment is there, and because of misconceptions, you assume doing that will get you what you want. And that's coming from ego grasping, the root delusion. It's not a complicated analysis. It's a revelation. So first control the body, then control the speech. But this key one, we start to, then the mind. So when we can start to become familiar with our minds, and that you need some concentration and meditation for that to start the ball rolling, so you can get the focus to want to listen to your mind, not just want to point to the outside world all the time. Then you're going to start to feel the pain of the anger physically, and the hurt, the ache, the hurt. We can't articulate that ache, that hurt. But it's coming from attachment not getting what it wants. And that deep emotional hunger, attachment, comes from the belief in the intrinsic me. There's this intimate hierarchical relationship between these three poisons, as Buddha talks about them. These three toxic emotions. They sound so cute, but they are primordially deep. And if you can begin to unpack and unravel these and understand them, you're doing an amazing job, I tell you. So they're misconceptions. So what is not a misconception is that my sister was mean to me. She did, out of meanness, say, "You're cockeye, Robina." She didn't mean well, I promise you. She didn't. So that's a fact. That's not a misconception. Don't get it wrong. That's not a misconception. The boyfriend did punch you in the nose. That is not a misconception. He did cheat on you. That is not a misconception. But you've got to be clear what is a misconception. Don't about the conspiracy theorists who see, rapists everywhere and God knows what. That's really insane. That's when you dump it on the outside world. That's demented conspiracy theories. That's not a misconception. She did punch me. She was mean to me. So what's the misconception? The misconception is, I don't deserve it. This is heavy. This is quite heavy for us. We can't handle this, How dare she do that to me? Look in the outside world and we see innocent people being harmed. Anger is, how dare that happen to those people? They don't deserve it. You've got to look into this, people. This is what drives us. Anger is the shock when something happens to somebody that we believe doesn't deserve it. That's the logic. That is the conceptual story of anger. Crystal clear right there. So we've got to unpack that and analyze, how is it a misconception? Well, this is where karma comes in, and this is where it's very heavy for us in the West. But let's look at the opposite. This is where it's quite shocking. I always say, I've never yet had a person on the planet ever ask me the question, "Robina, why do good things happen?" We never ask that question. You've got to look at this. It's quite shocking. Everybody asks why bad things happen. Surely that tells us something about our assumptions. Listen to it. Surely it tells us something about our assumptions, that we only ever ask, why do bad things happen? It obviously shows that we're shocked that bad things happen, which means we think bad things shouldn't happen because we think nobody deserves bad things. That's the analysis of that thought. So look at the fact that we never ask, why do good things happen? But it proves because we assume good things are the right thing to happen, because we assume we deserve them. Analyze this. This is really clear logic. So then why do we think we deserve good things, and why do we think we don't deserve bad things? This is the question to ask ourselves, and this is the analysis to do. It's really hard. It's terrifying. It's scary. It's scary because it's shaking our entire world. The world is driven by attachment and aversion. That's what Buddha means by being in samsara. So let's look at the logic. If we take in Buddha's view of karma, which is the one that drives everything, the big picture, everybody, every millisecond, is experiencing the results of their own past actions, thoughts, and words and speech. And everything we think and do and say is sowing seeds in our mind that will produce our future experiences. So taking just that view as a simple philosophical presentation, it's a simple view. Don't be nervous about it. You don't have to like it. No one even says you have to accept, even listen to it. But this is what Buddha has found to be true, that we are our own creators. So if we take the view, then that in this case, that our life, they use the analogy of seeds and fruits. Well, our life is like our garden, basically. You know perfectly well, and listen to this point. You know perfectly well that if it's in your garden in the backyard, you know you've done the work, you see it, you know it's the result of your work, you look in it, you delight in the flowers, you see the weeds, and the underlying assumption is it's your garden. So you own it, you take responsibility for it. So if you see a weed there, you go, oh God, that weed, I forgot that weed, look at that weed there, I better pull it out. You do not say, how dare there be a weed in my garden? I don't deserve it. You wouldn't be angry. Anger is I don't deserve it. That's what it's saying. You wouldn't say that. So simple, because you know it's your garden. You put in that garden, or didn't pull out of that garden, whatever's there. This is a really simple concept. You know, you don't look at the flowers and go, wow, aren't I lucky? God, I'm so fortunate. I'm so lucky. I deserve all these flowers. So, but this is the interesting point. Listen to this. Listen to this. The assumption behind anger and the assumption behind attachment is that somehow, listen to this, you're an innocent victim means you don't play a role in anything. You're separate. So when you have the view of an innocent victim and you see your garden with weeds in it, and you don't realize it's your garden, you know, you'd be shocked. No, you think it's your garden, but someone gave it to you. This is the point. You believe you're this innocent victim who got plonked on this earth, and someone gives you a garden. Someone, that's what we mean by God, or someone, the conspiracy theorists, someone out there gave me a garden. Oh, aren't I lucky when we get the good things, and I deserve all these good flowers and these veggies. Please keep giving me more, we will think. So there's an arrogance there. Attachment is this kind of arrogance. I deserve. I must be a good girl. Someone's giving me flowers. And then you see the weeds and you are outraged. How dare whoever is the boss of the universe give me bad things? That's the view of the innocent victim. That's conspiracy theories. Now, Buddha says, excuse me, baby, it's your garden. You grew it. You just forgot, that's all. So look at the difference when you own the garden as yours. You'll delight in those flowers and veggies. You will never take them for granted. You will never forget the hard work you did to get those flowers and veggies. So you will never waste them. You'll be humble. You won't be arrogant. There'll be no hubris, and you'll enjoy them, but you'll keep growing more because you want more in the future, baby, because you know you're responsible. And you will look at those weeds and go, oh, what a fool. I didn't catch that weed. I better pull it out right now. Look at the difference. Well, that's the view of karma. There's no conspiracy theory. Buddha does not say we're created by an external being. He does not say our mummy and daddy did it. They're the ones we blame in the West. No, you're not someone innocent victim of somebody else's plan. You're your own boss. You created your own life. Due to your past actions, you got some suffering, and due to your past actions, you got some happiness. All those weeds are yours, and all those flowers are yours. So when you own them, like I say, your life is your garden, then you will stop having anger. You will never say, how dare you do that to me? I don't deserve it, because you know that you planted it. and you'll own it and take responsibility and change it. This is hard, but this is the logic of using Buddha's view. So I don't deserve it is a literal misconception. I deserve only the good things is a literal misconception. If there are flowers in your garden and you planted them, yes, you deserve them because you put them there. If there's money in your bank, if there's no money in your bank, you don't go, how dare there be no dollars in my bank? I deserve dollars. Well, I'm sorry, if you deserve dollars, you must have earned them. When there are dollars in your bank, you can rightly say you deserve them because you put them there. That's what deserve means. When we say we don't deserve something, we think we didn't cause it. Well, Buddha said, I'm sorry, you caused everything in your life, all the happiness and the suffering. Join the universe, baby. It's not blame, it's not reward. There's no one up there. There's no conspiracy theorists. There's no one doing it to you. It's very simple. It takes time to hear this view, but this view of karma is rooted in the view of interdependence. It's rooted in the view of cause and effect. This is the thinking we have to do. It's up to us, though. So any questions in our last 15 minutes about all that? About that thinking, the logic we have to use to break down the assumptions deep in our bones that are our emotional misconceptions, our emotional invalid concepts. That's what invalid concept means. There's no basis in reality. Any questions?
There's a question in the chat, Venerable Robina, about what you just said, and then there's another question about something slightly different. Yeah, so right. About what you just said, Divya is saying, but wouldn't taking ownership of the garden in context of karma lead to more self-grasping?
The opposite. Because you realize it's interdependent. Self-grasping is coming from things not being interdependent. When you've got attachment and you've got fear, you've got a lot of ego grasping is fear. So when there's fear and you don't see, when there's fear, it means you're ignorant. And if you're ignorant, you don't really know why you get the flowers. But when they come, you're so happy to get me, feel so lucky. Oh, give me that cake quick. I mightn't get another one. So it's this real grasping, frantic, unhappy person who grasps at it. And then this hubris of I deserve this, And then in panic attack, when the bad thing comes, because you don't. But when you own them, you're in control of it. There's opposite to grasping. You're in control. You just grow another one. There's nothing to be afraid of. Or you pull the weed out. Fear is rooted in all the misconceptions. Fear is the main energy of the root delusion, ego grasping, because it's based on ignorance. We're stupid. We're grasping at straws. We're living in fantasies. We're sort of living in rainbows and nonsense. So that's why we have fear. But when you have logic and analysis, because logic, Buddha says reality is interdependence. Reality is cause and effect. So we're in touch with reality. If you understand botany infinite, if you don't understand botany, okay, and you don't know why flowers come and you don't know why weeds come, that's exactly now how we live our lives. We have no idea what causes happiness and we have no idea what causes suffering. So we're always in a state of constant panic. So if the good stuff comes, we grasp at it frantically because we don't know why it's there. And we panic when the ugly comes. Now, if you understand botany, if you don't understand why the weeds are there and why the flowers are there, you'll be living in panic every day. You'll never know. Wow, I just got good luck and bad luck. That's how we live our lives. That's why we're all insane. But if you know botany, nothing phases you. You know why there's a weed and you know how to deal with it. You know why there's a flower and how to deal with it. So there's no fear, therefore no ego grasping, therefore no attachment, therefore no anger. That's the point. What else? This is heavy duty stuff, people. This is the thinking. We have to, as we learn to hear the simple free, when you hear the experiential teachings of the lamas, they unpack it like this for us. They give you the bare bones that we have to then learn to use and put meat on the bones. But this is our own thinking. This is our thinking brings this. The thinking, it expresses it, So I'm sharing with you my thinking based on Buddha's teachings. Go on. Next question.
So Divya says, thank you. She understands. Thank you.
Oh, good.
I think the next question, it might be better if it's okay, I'd like to ask Deborah to ask it because I think it's been sort of changing a little bit. Maybe you could ask your question directly, Deborah, if it's okay.
Sure. I just wanted to know, where was my question? Oh yeah, Robina, I wanted to know if it's a misconception to think that you are loved for what you do or say.
I missed just the middle of the sentence. If what? If you what?
Is it a misconception to think that you are loved for what you do?
You are what? You are what?
Loved.
You are loved for what?
For what you do or say, and not for who you are.
It's too complicated for me. Bring it down to earth and give me an example.
Like, for example, say you think you have a narcissistic mother. And so the only way that you get her attention or her love is when you do everything that pleases her. So you're really loved for what you do and say to please her than for who you are.
Well, there's a lot of assumptions in that, Deborah. You have to unpack them for me. What, is this a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Is it something you do? Is it something you don't want to do? I don't understand where you're coming from. Unpack it, please. Do you want to have your mother's? Are you trying to get your mother's love? What's the point here? What's going on?
Yeah, that's the only way to, I guess, be approved.
Yeah, I know that, but I'm trying to ask you why you even want her approval.
Oh.
Why are you so hungry for her approval? You have to look, Deborah.
To make her happy. To make her happy.
No, that doesn't make her happy. No. That's different. That's not, the approval, your mother's approval of you has got nothing to do with you making your mother happy. You want, so first of all, let's start. First of all, the job of the compassion wing is we have to want to make someone happy. We always want people to have, that's what love means, Deborah. You're thinking, I wish my mother was happy. Now you can see your mummy, you call her narcissistic, let's call Buddhist language, she's got attachment, lots of attachment, lots of self-cherishing, only thinks of herself, gets miserable, manipulates people, harms people. Is that your mummy to some degree? Okay, first of all, do you recognize any of this in yourself?
Yes.
Good, that's important because everybody's got them. And even the fact that you mainly see that in your mother and you don't see her good qualities, in a sense, is saying something about you also. So look at that, because we see everybody through our own lenses. So anyways, that's that aspect. But the thing is, I love you means I want you to be happy. So now wisdom is knowing how to make your mummy happy. So now you have to come from the wish, not just to get your mother's approval that makes you feel nice, because that's what you suggested, your first question. Who cares what she thinks of you? That's her problem. Your job, out of compassion, if you can, is to try and make your mother happy. So you can't change her mind, because the only way she's going to get happy is by giving up her attachment and her self-centeredness. But you can't force her to do this. So you have to have no expectations, and you spend your time with your mother. You do your best to hope she be happy, but you just you give yourself to her for that 1 hour and you let her be. But for you needing your mother's approval so you can feel happy, we all have that, darling, and that's called attachment to approval, and that's our big suffering. So there's your suffering and then there's her suffering. Get them separate. But loving your mother, you can't guarantee you'll make her happy. So the other thing is, because she's got self-centeredness and she's miserable, what we try to do is to be good daughters. We keep thinking, well, the next thing I do, maybe that'll make mummy happy. And then she starts being miserable again. And then we get depressed. Oh my God, I didn't make her happy. And we keep trying until eventually, I remember one woman who had such a terrible relationship with her mother. They were like so caught up in their own misery. She'd even sleep the night in her mother's bed to try and make her mother happy. But her mother still wasn't happy, because attachment is a bottomless pit, Deborah. You can give your mother your blood daily. You can feed yourself to her for breakfast. She still won't be happy, because attachment can never be satisfied. So when you know your mother's suffering because of her attachment, all you'll do is love her for who she is. You'll stop trying to change her. You'll stop trying to expect her to be different. You won't take it personally. You just be kind to her and then bye, mummy, see you next week. And that's it. But darling, you can't do that until you've sorted out your own mess and your own neediness for her to approve of you, and all your pain and hurt when she doesn't, etc., etc., etc. Are we communicating?
Yes. Can I just ask you, so where do I start?
By working on your own mind.
Okay.
By seeing your own attachment. So whenever you hear your mother or see your mother, don't just look at what your mother's doing. This is my whole point before. Start to try, and even after the conversation, start to try and identify what's in your own mind as a response to your mother. That's the first job. That's what I'm trying to say before. It's like, that's reversing the energy of the bomb. We all the time only look at the outside object. Do you understand? You've got to start to look at you who is observing the object. You've got to start to look at your attachment, your neediness, your fears, your anger, your hurt. This is easy words to say, but this is the first step, sweetheart.
Thank you, Robina.
Slowly, Deborah.
Okay. Thank you.
Good, darling. Thank you so much. What else, people?
We have another question, Venerable Robina.
Good.
So this one is from Mayura, and she's saying...
Oh, who is it?
I think her name is Mayura.
Good, okay, go, darling.
She's saying, so when I know logically that if I do something, I'll suffer, why do I still do it? Why do we do things that we know will lead?
Habit, just habit, darling. Nothing more secret, nothing more secret. It's simply programmed in your mind from having done it before. That's honestly, it's profound, but it's simple. That's it. Your mind, like, if you've been playing the piano for 10 years wrong, it's kind of hard to change the way you play it. If you're saying a word the wrong way or believing a certain thing in a certain way, it takes a while to change because your mind is programmed in that groove. It's really, and that's the meaning of karma. We come into this life, honey, programmed already with our past tendencies. We're driven by the power of our past tendencies. This is why changing our minds now is quite hard work. That's exactly the reason, no more and no less. So that's why we've got to keep practicing, digging new grooves in the mind. And start small and be humble with it. Eventually you'll develop the new habit. Have patience in that. Yeah, what else?
That's all I have in the chat, Venerable Robina.
Okay, anybody, any other questions?
I have a question, Robina.
Good, talk to me.
It's Vanessa.
Yeah.
My mom passed away last Wednesday, and
Tell me, you should have, did you email Copan and tell them to do prayers?
yes, I did.
I'm so happy. I'm
Yeah.
so happy, darling. And were you with her when she died, darling?
Yes. Oh, well, not when she took her last breath,
But you were close before that.
but I was very close. She, so me and my brother went to bed around 11:30 at night, and then I checked on her around 1:20 and she was gone.
What did you do then?
What did I do?
You did prayers and things for her right then?
I did, from reading the book from Lama,
Good.
yeah, Rinpoche.
Good.
Rinpoche. Say the name, do some medicine Buddha mantras.
Wonderful. Yes.
Had holy objects.
Good, amazing, darling. When did you call the ambulance or the doctor or whatever?
We called the nurse to pronounce her.
What time did you call the nurse?
Around 1:20 when I discovered her, 1:30.
Oh, you called the nurse immediately?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, that's okay. That's fine. Best to leave.
But she didn't come over until like maybe an hour or two later.
What did she do then?
She just kind of made her look presentable. We had to change her clothing.
So you did all that. Okay. Okay, that's fine. So anyway, you did the prayers and practices.
Yeah. But her body wasn't taken away until like 12 hours later.
You did prayers and practices all the time. That's the main thing.
I'm sorry, what was that one?
Did you follow the instructions in Rinpoche's book about what to do after the breath stops? That's what I'm asking you.
Not to a T. I was kind of not really well versed in it, so I did play the mantras.
Of course, darling. But you did everything you could. That's good.
I did everything. Yeah, I did as much as I could.
Good. Yeah, wonderful, Vanessa. I'm so happy, darling. And you did practice prayers later on for her. At Copan, you had prayers done for her.
I did. Yeah. Good. Yeah.
Wonderful.
But my question is, like, her body went to the morgue and to be chilled until like the funeral. So I know I read there's like a 3-day, let her body, but I mean, I couldn't do that obviously.
Right. So then
so my question is like, is it, I mean,
you did as well as you could, darling. You did as well as you could. As you know, in that book, the ideal scenario would have been to leave your mummy as long as possible. Call the nurse. I mean, call the nurse maybe at 12 hours later, 15 hours later. But it doesn't matter. You did everything you could. And your mother had virtue and she died peacefully. You're doing all the prayers and stuff. You did everything you could as well as possible. That's perfect, sweetheart. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
That's wonderful, Vanessa. You did very well.
And my other question is, in terms of grief, like, what's the difference between a person who doesn't grieve and someone who just all out grieves? And
it all depends on the person. I think everyone's so different, and I think we might have discussed this before. But if we look at grief, that's one word that we use in our culture. But if I look at Buddhist psychology, there's various states of mind all mixed in there together. One of them is attachment, of course. So if a person is very attached, very needy for the other person, they will have a lot of suffering. They won't be able to let go. It'll be very devastating for them. Another person maybe has more compassion. That person will be sad and cry, but they won't suffer so badly. They'll be able to kind of understand impermanence and recognize that death is natural. They'll do everything they can to help their mummy, and they'll move forward, and it won't break their heart so easily. I mean, and some people who have a lot of attachment feel almost that it's bad to start to feel better. So they walk around for the rest of their life miserable. That's not virtuous at all. So it's every individual's different, sweetheart. So you just deal with whatever's in your mind. But the main one is, Vanessa, as you know from being a Buddhist, you helped your mother, hopefully to get another good human life. You did everything you can. And then the next real practice is recognize impermanence and know that, darling, this is now going to happen to you. That's the real wake-up call, Vanessa. The real learning from this is not just the grief. We don't think that in our culture, but I'm going to be the person who's going to die. So then the wake-up call for you is, let me not waste my life. That's the real learning from this, sweetheart. Then you use yourself to transform yourself, to become a better person, keep practicing. That's the powerful wake-up call. Meanwhile, deal with your loss, Do you understand, sweetheart? Does that make sense, Vanessa?
Yes, it does.
Good. You're doing well? You're okay? You're managing? You're doing well?
Yeah, I'm doing good. I mean, it's, using it, what I've learned from Buddhism and permanence.
Of course, exactly,
So,
darling. It's good. Well done, Vanessa. I'll do some prayer. We'll all do some prayer. We'll just do a few. It's time to go now. In fact, do a few medicine Buddhas. What's your mummy's name, sweetheart?
Loy.
Okay, we'll do a few medicine Buddhas right now for Loy and anybody else who's died, anybody else who's sick and suffering. We'll do that. We'll finish right now with that, okay? So we just you think of Loy right there, darling, and she's in the intermediate state. Maybe she hasn't taken a rebirth yet. And we strongly visualize the medicine Buddha in the sky in front of us. He's the same as the Buddha, but he's blue, dark blue. And then we imagine as we say the mantra, or you just listen if you don't know it, light pouring out from medicine Buddha, pouring into Loy in the intermediate state, and all the other suffering beings around the world. Anybody in particular we know, whose names we know. So maybe just, we think of all of them, and we strongly make this aspiration. They all purify their negative karma and take human rebirth as quickly as possible, and that blessing us as well and taking away everybody's suffering. Taya taom bekanze maha bekanze ranza samungate svaha. 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 Okay. So may all of us continue practicing, working on our minds, developing our marvelous potential for our sake and the sake of others, so that we can help other sentient beings, whether it's the ant or the mouse or our dying mummy, whoever it is, in this life and at the time of death. So we can all continue developing our marvelous potential for the sake of sentient beings. Thank you, everybody, so much. Much love, everyone. Everybody, goodbye. Thank you.